The red sun of Draxus 4 hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the ruined battlefield. Smoke and dust swirled in the dry air, mixing with the scent of burnt metal and energy discharge. The war between humanity and the Xilari Dominion had raged for months, and today, the Xilari believed they had finally won. Commander Vena, a tall, armored Xilari officer with sharp, violet eyes, stood atop a rocky hill, observing the battlefield with confidence. Her species was known for their advanced technology, superior strategy, and nearly indestructible energy shields. The Xilari had conquered countless worlds, and to them, humanity was just another primitive race resisting the inevitable. Her second-in-command, Officer Luruk, approached and saluted. "Commander, the last human stronghold is about to fall. Their forces are in retreat." Vena smiled, her expression calm. "Good. Let them run. We will crush the last resistance by nightfall." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the valley. A single gunshot. Luruk's body jolted as a red hole appeared between his glowing blue eyes. His body fell, lifeless. Silence. Vena's blood ran cold. Luruk had been standing behind an energy shield. That should have been impossible. She activated her visor, scanning for the attack's origin. "Find the shooter," she ordered. Her soldiers rushed to obey, spreading out across the battlefield. But no movement, no heat signature, no trace of a sniper could be found. Yet another shot rang out. A high-ranking Xilari captain collapsed, his helmet shattered. Vena clenched her fists. This wasn't a random attack. This was a hunter at work. The ghost in the battlefield. On the outskirts of the battlefield, hidden in the rubble of a destroyed building, Lieutenant Orion Hayes adjusted the scope of his XM7 rail sniper, a weapon handcrafted for long-range combat. He exhaled slowly, his heartbeat steady. He had only one goal, to remind the Xilari that humanity was not weak. The Xilari thought their technology made them invincible. Their energy shields were powerful, but not perfect. Orion had spent weeks studying their weaknesses, learning how their shields fluctuated at precise intervals. His bullets didn't just hit through shields. They hit between them, in the split second when they were weakest. Orion checked his surroundings. No movement. The Xilari were searching for him. But they didn't understand that he wasn't just a soldier. He was a ghost. He spotted a Xilari officer giving new orders, trying to reorganize their forces. Orion adjusted his aim, calculated the wind speed, adjusted for gravity, and squeezed the trigger. Bang! Another direct hit. The officer fell. The Xilari soldiers froze, looking around in fear. Vena's realization. Vena gritted her teeth. How is this happening? No human weapon can penetrate our defenses. One of her technicians hesitated before answering. "Commander, the shots are not breaking our shields. They are bypassing them. Whoever is doing this, they are predicting our shield movements perfectly." Vena's eyes widened. That was impossible. The Xilari were trained to believe in their superiority, but this one human was destroying that belief. He wasn't using fancy alien weapons. He wasn't relying on technology. He was using skill, patience, and intelligence. Vena grabbed her communicator. "Deploy the hunter squads. Find this sniper and eliminate him." Her soldiers moved quickly, using drones and scanners to track heat signatures and movement. But still, nothing. The sniper was a phantom. A part of Vena didn't want to admit it, but she finally understood. This wasn't just a battle of weapons. This was a battle of minds. And for the first time, she was afraid the Xilari might lose. The battlefield was silent, not because the war was over, but because fear had taken hold of the Xilari soldiers. They were warriors, trained for brutal combat, but they had never faced an enemy like this, a phantom sniper who could kill them without being seen. Commander Vena stood near the remains of a fallen officer, her violet eyes scanning the horizon. The human had taken down 3 high-ranking Xilari in under 5 minutes. Every shot had been perfect, every kill precise. She clenched her fists. "This is not possible," she muttered. Her soldiers remained still, waiting for her orders. They were afraid. Their energy shields, the technology that made them nearly invincible, had failed them. She activated her communicator. "Deploy the hunter squads. I want that sniper found now." Her hunter squads were elite. Drexian trackers, expert scouts, and combat drones designed to detect even the smallest heat signatures. If this human sniper was out there, they would flush him out. Or so she thought. Orion's next move. Lieutenant Orion Hayes lay flat against the cold metal ruins of a destroyed building, his breathing slow and steady. His XM7 rail sniper rested in his hands, its barrel still warm from the last shot. Through his scope, he watched as the auxiliary forces began their search. He could see them deploying drones, scanning the wreckage, moving carefully like hunters closing in on prey. He smiled slightly. "They think I'm the prey." He wasn't. They had numbers. They had technology. They had energy shields. But they didn't have experience. Orion was a sniper. And in war, a sniper's greatest weapon wasn't his rifle. It was his patience. He checked his surroundings, searching for his next move. His position was good, but he couldn't stay here forever. The auxiliary would eventually find him. Then he spotted it, a broken-down supply vehicle about 100 meters away, covered in debris. A perfect place to relocate. Slow movements. Stay low. No sudden noises. Orion slid backward, inch by inch, keeping his profile as small as possible. The auxiliary drones hovered above, scanning the ground. He stopped moving, his body pressed against the dirt. A drone passed directly overhead. It paused. Orion held his breath. After a few seconds, the drone moved on. Too close. Orion reached the supply vehicle and carefully crawled inside. It was small, dark, and cramped, but it would do. He set up his sniper rifle again and waited. The hunter becomes the hunted. Meanwhile, Vena stood with her arms crossed, watching the search unfold. Her second-in-command was dead. Her best officers had been eliminated. This was no ordinary soldier. This human was something else. She turned to one of her scouts. "Where is he?" The scout hesitated. "Commander, the drones have found no movement. No body heat. No trace of his position." Vena narrowed her eyes. Impossible. The human had to be here. He wasn't using a stealth suit or advanced cloaking. He was simply using his environment, something no auxiliary warrior had ever been trained to do. Then, a sound. A single gunshot rang out. One of the scouting drones exploded in midair, its metal pieces raining down. The soldiers froze. Vena's eyes widened. "He's targeting our drones." She gritted her teeth. This was humiliating. The auxiliary were a race of conquerors. They took planets, destroyed armies, and broke civilizations. And yet, here on this battlefield, one single human was making them feel powerless. She refused to accept it. She grabbed her weapon, a plasma spear that could cut through any material, and stepped forward. "If my soldiers cannot find him, then I will." Her troops looked at her in shock. "Commander, that's too dangerous," one of them protested. Vena turned her sharp gaze to them. "I do not fear a single human." She activated her battle armor, its energy humming around her body. And then, with calm determination, she stepped into the battlefield, walking straight into the sniper sights. Orion's surprise. Orion watched through his scope as the auxiliary commander stepped forward. She was tall, powerful, and fearless. Unlike the other auxiliary, she wasn't hiding. She was challenging him. Orion adjusted his aim. One shot. That's all it would take. He exhaled, steadying his breath. He pulled the trigger. Bang. The bullet raced through the air, heading straight for Vena's head. But just as it was about to strike, her energy shield flared brighter than before, blocking the shot completely. Orion's eyes narrowed. They adapted. Vena smirked. "You're good, human. she said aloud, knowing he was listening. "But let's see how good you really are." She raised her plasma spear and charged directly toward his position. Vena's plasma spear crackled with energy as she sprinted across the battlefield. Her sharp violet eyes scanned the ruins ahead. She knew the human sniper was watching her, waiting for the perfect shot. But this time, she was prepared. Her adaptive shield had already blocked one of his bullets. He wouldn't be able to take her down so easily now. The battlefield was silent, except for the distant hum of drones and the occasional crackle of flames from destroyed vehicles. Somewhere in the rubble, the human sniper was waiting. Orion's dilemma. Orion watched through his scope, tracking every movement of the Xilari commander. She was fast, faster than any Xilari he had ever seen before. She wants me to take the shot, Orion thought. She was tempting him, daring him to reveal his position. But Orion was no fool. He had been in too many battles, fought too many wars. He knew a trap when he saw one. Still, he had to act soon. His last shot had been blocked, which meant her shield had adjusted to his rifle's firepower. If he wanted to take her down, he needed another strategy. He glanced around his surroundings. The supply truck he had been using for cover wouldn't protect him for long. If she got close enough, her plasma spear would cut through it like paper. He had two options: relocate and risk exposure. Find a weak point in her defense. Orion didn't like either option. But he had to make a decision. Fast. Vena closes in. Vena slowed her pace, stepping carefully over broken concrete and debris. She could feel it. The sniper was nearby. She had fought many warriors, but this human was different. He didn't fight like the Xilari. He didn't rely on brute strength or energy weapons. He fought with patience, with precision. It was almost admirable. But it didn't matter. She was going to end this hunt. She raised her wrist, activating her thermal scanner. If the human was hiding, she would find him. The scanner beeped. A heat signature. Her eyes locked onto a half-destroyed supply truck. A small smirk appeared on her lips. Got you. She tightened her grip on her spear and charged forward. Orion's counterattack. Orion heard the beeping. His heart pounded. She's found me. The Xilari commander was now running straight toward him, spear glowing with energy. He had only seconds to react. Orion grabbed a small EMP grenade from his belt and pulled the pin. It wouldn't kill her, but it would disable her shield. For a moment. That's all he needed. He threw the grenade just as Vena leaped into the air, ready to strike. Boom! The EMP pulse exploded in a flash of blue light. Vena felt her armor flicker as her shield collapsed. No, she thought. Then, bang! A bullet ripped through the air, aimed straight at her chest. Vena twisted her body midair, avoiding a direct hit, but the bullet scraped her shoulder, sending a sharp pain through her arm. She landed hard, rolling across the ground before quickly getting back on her feet. She looked down. Her shoulder armor was damaged. If the bullet had hit just a few inches to the right, it would have gone through her heart. Her hands trembled slightly. The human had nearly killed her. A deadly standoff. Orion quickly reloaded his sniper rifle, but before he could fire again, Vena moved. She threw her plasma spear with unbelievable speed. Orion barely had time to react. He jumped to the side as the spear smashed into the truck, slicing through metal and causing a small explosion. The force knocked Orion back, sending him crashing to the ground. His sniper rifle slipped from his hands, landing several feet away. Damn it! Before he could reach for it, he saw a shadow looming over him. Vena stood there, her violet eyes burning with intensity. Her plasma spear was gone, but she didn't need it. She had won. Orion lay on the ground, his back against the rubble. He was unarmed, and Vena was standing right above him. For the first time in the battle, Orion felt a strange feeling in his gut. Was this it? Vena raised her arm, her fingers glowing with a shock pulse that could knock him out instantly. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You're not like the others," she said. Orion smirked, despite the situation. "You're not so bad yourself." For a moment, there was silence. Then, Vena suddenly deactivated her shock pulse. She didn't strike him. Orion frowned. "What are you doing?" Vena studied him carefully, then said something he never expected. "I want to know how you fight like this." Orion blinked. "What?" Vena crossed her arms. "No auxiliary fights like you. No hesitation. No fear. Just calm, perfect strategy." She tilted her head. "You could have run. But you didn't. You could have killed me. But you missed." Orion chuckled. "That wasn't a miss." Vena smirked. "I see." She stepped back, allowing him to stand. Orion slowly got to his feet, still watching her carefully. This wasn't how he expected the fight to end. "Come with me," Vena said. Orion raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because," she said, "I want to learn from you." Orion stood still, eyes locked onto Vena. She had just spared his life, and now she was asking to learn from him. The Xilari were known for their pride. Their warriors never admitted weakness. Yet here she was, standing before him, saying she wanted to understand his fighting style. Orion smirked. "You expect me to believe that?" Vena folded her arms. "Believe what you want, human. But I've seen enough today to know that you fight unlike anyone I've ever faced." She pointed at her damaged armor. "Your tactics, your patience, your ability to predict my movements, it's beyond what I've encountered." Orion wiped dust off his face and crossed his arms. "So, what now? You want me to be your teacher?" Vena's sharp violet eyes studied him. "You could say that." She wasn't asking for help out of desperation. It was curiosity. Orion could see it in her expression. This wasn't about pride or winning a battle. She wanted to understand. A dangerous offer. Orion glanced around. The battlefield was still smoldering, but for now, there was an uneasy silence. "We're still at war, you know," he said. Vena nodded. "I know. Your people would call you a traitor for this." She smirked. "And yours would call you a fool for trusting me." Orion chuckled. "Yeah, probably." Vena took a step closer. "But think about it, Orion. We both know this war won't be won by brute strength. The Xilari are powerful, but humans, you fight differently. Your strategies, your instincts, they defy logic." She tapped the side of her helmet. "I've trained in thousands of battle simulations. I've studied every war, every military tactic. And yet," she motioned to her injured shoulder, where his bullet had grazed her, "I still lost." Orion tilted his head. "So what do you want?" "I want to learn. From you." Orion sighed. "And if I refuse?" Vena gave a small, knowing smile. "Then I'll hunt you down and defeat you. Properly, this time." Orion laughed. "You're really not giving me much of a choice, huh?" Vena extended a hand. "I don't expect you to trust me, human. But I believe that if we combine our strengths, we can change the course of this war." Orion looked at her hand, then back at her face. This was crazy. Absolutely insane. But something in her voice told him she was serious. Against all logic, against all reason, Orion made his decision. He shook her hand. A test of skill. "All right," Orion said. "If we're doing this, I need to see what you already know." Vena arched an eyebrow. "A test. Think of it as a lesson." Orion grabbed his sniper rifle, slinging it over his back. "Let's see how good you are at spotting weaknesses." Vena smirked. "You're testing me. Fine." She took a step back and activated her visor scanner, analyzing her surroundings. "Tell me what I need to do." Orion pointed at the wreckage of a destroyed drone in the distance. "Imagine I'm hiding behind that. Where would you shoot to force me out?" Vena studied the position for a moment. "The left side is weak. If I fire a plasma bolt there, the explosion will force you to move right. Then She turned toward a pile of rubble. That would be your next cover. If I predict your movement correctly, I'd aim here and take you out before you reach it. Orion raised an eyebrow. Not bad. Vena crossed her arms. I told you, I'm a fast learner. Orion smirked. All right then, let's see how fast you really are. He suddenly vanished into the ruins, moving without a sound. Vena's eyes narrowed. The hunt had begun. A deadly game. Vena crept forward, her spear ready, scanning the battlefield. She activated her heat scanner, but Orion was already adapting. His suit was dispersing body heat, making him nearly invisible. Smart. But she wasn't going to lose this time. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the wind, the distant crackling of fire. Then, a single pebble rolled down the rubble. Vena spun around and launched a plasma bolt toward the source. Boom! The explosion sent metal fragments flying, and for a split second, she saw a shadow move. Vena dashed forward, leaping over the wreckage, ready to strike. But Orion was already gone. A voice echoed behind her. Too slow. She turned just in time to see him aiming his rifle. Vena smirked. Clever, but you're out of position. Orion's eyes flicked to the side, just in time to see her plasma spear already in midair, flying straight toward him. He rolled to the side, barely dodging as the spear exploded behind him. Orion landed on one knee, rifle raised. Vena was gone. A second later, she appeared behind him, pressing a small stun device to his back. A sharp jolt of electricity ran through Orion's body, making him stumble forward. He turned to see Vena standing there, arms crossed, smirking. Checkmate. Orion chuckled, rubbing his neck. Not bad. Vena extended a hand. I told you, I learned fast. Orion took her hand and pulled himself up. All right. Maybe this won't be a waste of time after all. For the first time in his life, Orion realized something strange. He was fighting alongside an alien. And somehow, it felt right. Orion and Vena stood facing each other in the middle of the ruined battlefield. The fires had died down, and the smoke was fading into the sky. The war wasn't over, but for now, they had a different fight ahead of them, one of skill, speed, and strategy. Vena rolled her shoulders. So, how do humans train? Orion smirked. We start with the basics. She raised an eyebrow. I am a Tsilari warrior. I do not need basics. Really? Orion asked. Then show me how fast you can hit a moving target. He tossed a small metal sphere into the air. The second it left his hand, he vanished. Vena's eyes locked onto the sphere. Her instincts screamed to strike, but she forced herself to wait. Orion was testing her. She needed to be smarter. Then she heard it. A faint shift in the rubble. A footstep behind her. Without hesitation, she spun around and threw her spear. Boom! The spear's energy blast struck a metal wall, sending sparks flying. But Orion had already moved. Vena cursed under her breath. You're fast. Orion's voice echoed from the ruins. Speed is important, but patience matters more. Vena narrowed her eyes. You're playing games with me. Orion finally reappeared, standing on a broken structure. It's not a game. It's a lesson. He pointed at the spear stuck in the metal wall. You aimed at where I was, not where I would be. You reacted instead of predicting. Vena crossed her arms. Then teach me how to predict. Orion nodded. All right. Try to hit me again. The hunter and the prey. Vena took a deep breath. This time, she wouldn't rely on her instincts alone. She crouched low, eyes scanning the battlefield. Orion was fast, but he wasn't invisible. He had to leave some signs of movement. A shadow flickered near a pile of rubble. A tiny disturbance in the dust. There. Vena lunged, throwing a dagger instead of her spear. The blade whizzed through the air, barely missing Orion as he rolled to the side. He grinned. Better. Vena smirked. I learn fast. Orion dusted himself off. All right, now let's talk about real battle tactics. Understanding human strategy. Vena sat on a broken stone while Orion drew a rough battlefield map in the dirt. Scifi warriors fight with strength and honor, right? Orion asked. Vena nodded. We prefer direct combat. Speed, power, and skill decide victory. Orion tapped the ground. That's why humans keep winning. We don't fight fair. Vena frowned. You mean you cheat? Orion chuckled. It's not cheating. It's thinking ahead. He pointed at a spot on the map. Imagine you have 20 auxiliary soldiers here. You think they're safe, but I've already placed explosives along this path. Vena's eyes widened. A trap. Orion nodded. While you're charging forward, my team would be flanking from behind. Vena stared at the map. Your kind fights like hunters. Orion smirked. Exactly. Vena shook her head. Auxiliary see war as a test of strength. You see it as survival. Orion's face grew serious. That's because for us, it is survival. A growing respect. Vena thought about what Orion had said. Humans weren't stronger than the auxiliary. They weren't faster either. But they fought with a different kind of intelligence. She looked at Orion. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a strategist, a survivor who had mastered war in ways the auxiliary never considered. And for the first time in her life, Vena wondered if strength alone wasn't enough. She stood up. All right, human. Teach me more. Orion grinned. Now you're talking. The first real test. Hours later, Orion led Vena to the edge of a ruined building. All right, let's see if you've really learned anything. He pointed to a small auxiliary patrol unit in the distance. 5 soldiers, unaware of their presence. Vena's first instinct was to attack directly, but she stopped herself. She studied the terrain, wind direction, cover, escape routes. She thought like a human. Then she whispered, "We take out the leader first. The rest will be confused." Orion nodded. Good start. Vena smirked. Let's hunt. The night was silent, except for the distant hum of auxiliary patrols moving through the ruins. Orion and Vena crouched behind a broken wall, watching their targets from a safe distance. 5 auxiliary soldiers stood near a supply cache, speaking in low voices. Their energy weapons gleamed under the moonlight. Vena studied them carefully. The leader is the one with the red markings, she whispered. Orion nodded. Good eye. If we take him down first, the others will hesitate. She gripped her spear. I can handle this. Orion placed a hand on her wrist. Not yet. Watch and learn. Vena frowned but obeyed. Orion slowly unslung his sniper rifle, adjusting the scope with precision. He took a deep breath, his entire body completely still. His finger rested on the trigger, but he didn't fire. The wind shifted slightly. Orion adjusted his aim. Patience, timing, precision. Vena had seen many great warriors fight. She had seen auxiliary champions crush enemies with brute strength, but she had never seen anything like this. Orion was calm, focused. It was as if he had already won the battle before even taking the shot. Vena whispered, "Why don't you fire?" Orion smirked. Because the shot isn't perfect yet. She didn't understand. The enemy leader was standing right there, a clear target. But Orion waited, breathing steadily. Then suddenly, the moment came. The leader turned slightly, exposing a weak spot in his armor. Orion's finger pressed the trigger. Puffed. A whisper-quiet shot. No bright flash. No explosion. Just pure accuracy. The leader dropped instantly, his body collapsing without a sound. The other auxiliary froze. Their eyes darted around in panic. They had no idea what happened. Vena's mouth fell open. Impossible. Orion smirked. One shot. No noise. No mess. The remaining soldiers hesitated, looking for the attacker. That's when Vena struck. She leaped from cover, moving like a shadow. Before the enemy could react, She took out 2 of them with precise strikes of her spear. The last 2 tried to run, but Orion dropped one with another perfect shot, while Vena tackled the final soldier, knocking him unconscious. Within seconds, it was over. 5 enemies eliminated. No alarms raised. Vena looked at Orion with pure admiration. That was incredible. Orion chuckled. Told you. It's not about strength. It's about precision. The mission isn't over. Vena took a deep breath, still feeling the rush of battle. The way they had moved together, fought together, it felt like they were unstoppable. But Orion was already checking the area. We need to move. More patrols could be nearby. Vena nodded and started searching the supply cache. Inside, she found food, ammunition, and a strange-looking device with glowing blue lines. "What is this?" she asked, holding it up. Orion frowned. "Looks like a communication jammer. They were probably using it to block human signals." A realization hit Vena. "That means if we disable it, your people can contact reinforcements." Orion grinned. "Exactly." Vena smirked. "Then let's break it." She raised her spear, but Orion stopped her. "Not like that. We don't want them to know we took it out. We have to disable it quietly." Vena sighed. Humans and their quiet ways. Orion quickly worked on the device, rewiring the circuits with expert hands. Within moments, the jammer powered down. Somewhere in the distance, Orion's radio crackled to life. "This is Echo Team. Can anyone hear us?" Orion grabbed his earpiece. "This is Orion. We're alive. Sending coordinates now." A brief silence, then a relieved voice. "Thank God. Hold your position. Reinforcements inbound." Vena crossed her arms. "So, we won." Orion gave her a half-smile. "Not yet. We just evened the playing field." The enemy approaches. Just as Orion finished sending the coordinates, a deep roar echoed through the ruins. Vena's body tensed. Orion cursed under his breath. "That's not good." From the shadows, a massive Scifi warrior stepped forward, 8 feet tall, heavy armor, energy shield. Vena's eyes narrowed. A destroyer-class soldier. This will not be easy. The Scifi warrior looked down at the fallen soldiers, then at Orion and Vena. His voice was like thunder. "You dare challenge the Scifi Empire?" Orion sighed. "Great. A dramatic one." The destroyer charged forward, his heavy steps shaking the ground. Vena raised her spear, ready for battle. Orion adjusted his sniper rifle. "This one's yours, Vena." She smirked. "Gladly." The ground trembled under the heavy steps of the auxiliary destroyer. His massive figure loomed over Orion and Vena, his armored body glowing with energy shields. His deep, rumbling voice echoed in the ruins. "You humans think you are clever," he growled. "But strength decides the victor." Orion tightened his grip on his sniper rifle, but he knew this enemy was different. Regular bullets wouldn't break through that armor easily. This was Vena's fight. Vena stepped forward, gripping her spear tightly. "We'll see about that." The destroyer charged forward, swinging a massive energy blade. Fast, too fast for something his size. Vena barely dodged in time. The blade slammed into the ground, sending stone and dust flying. If she had been a second slower, she would have been crushed. Orion moved to a higher position, ready to provide support. Vena aimed for his weak points, joints and neck. She didn't need him to tell her twice. Speed was her advantage. She dashed to the side, stabbing at his knee joint. Clang. Her spear barely scratched the armor. The destroyer roared in amusement. Pathetic. He swung again, and this time she wasn't fast enough. The impact sent her flying, slamming into a broken wall. Dust filled the air. Orion's heart raced. Vena. She groaned, pushing herself up. The destroyer stomped toward her. One more hit, and she wouldn't survive. Orion gritted his teeth, He needed a plan. Fast. A sniper's precision. His rifle couldn't break the armor. But maybe. Orion focused, scanning the destroyer's body. Then he saw it. A tiny gap in the armor near the power core on his back. It was a small target, almost impossible. Almost. Orion steadied his breathing. Slow. Precise. The destroyer raised his blade for a final strike. Vena tried to move, but her body was too slow. Orion pulled the trigger. Theft. The bullet flew through the air, cutting through dust and wind. Direct hit. The destroyer staggered, roaring in pain. His armor flickered as his energy shields failed. Vena's eyes widened. This was her chance. She leaped forward, gripping her spear with both hands. With all her strength, she plunged it into the exposed gap near his neck. The spear pierced deep. The destroyer's roar turned into a choked gasp. His massive body shook, then collapsed onto the ground with a heavy thud. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Orion grinned. Nice work. Vena smirked, breathing heavily. You softened him up first. She yanked her spear free as the massive warrior lay still. They had won. The end of the battle. Orion's radio crackled. This is Echo Team. We have a visual on your location. Prepare for extraction. Vena looked up. Human dropships appeared in the sky, moving toward them. The reinforcements had arrived. Orion sighed in relief. Right on time. The remaining Siluri soldiers saw the dropships and flowed into the shadows, realizing the battle was lost. As the ships landed, human soldiers rushed out, securing the area. A commander stepped forward. Orion, you did good. Orion nodded toward Vena. Couldn't have done it without her. The commander looked at the alien warrior with curiosity. She's not one of us. Vena lifted her chin proudly. I fight for those who deserve it. Orion chuckled. That's a fancy way of saying she's on our side. The commander smirked. Then welcome aboard. Vena looked at the human soldiers, then at Orion. A strange warmth filled her chest. She had always fought alone, but now she had a team. Orion nudged her. So still think humans are weak? She smirked. Maybe not all of them. As the sun began to rise, the dropships lifted into the sky. The battle was over, but this was just the beginning of a new alliance.